Where do you live at the moment? Right now, I live in Hanoi. It's one of the largest cities in Vietnam. Why did you choose to live in Hanoi? Well, I graduated university last year, and even before I graduated, I knew that I wanted to spend a bit of time living abroad, just to soak in another culture and perhaps learn a new language. After traveling throughout Asia, my friend and I really came to love the city of Hanoi, and we decided that this would be a good place to settle down. How long do you plan to live in Hanoi? Well, this is actually a question that I ask myself quite often. At first, I thought I would only stay for a short period of time, maybe 6 months. But 6 months has come and gone, and I'm still here. At the moment, I plan to stay in Hanoi for the foreseeable future, maybe 1 or 2 more years. I've really set up roots in Hanoi with a good network of friends and a job that I really enjoy, so I don't have any plans to leave soon. Is there anything that you don't like about the city that you live in? Sure, I think that regardless of where you live, there will always be things that you want to change. In Hanoi, I would definitely prefer a little less traffic. The streets are often congested, and sometimes a 5 minute trip by motorbike can take 15 or 20 minutes. Of course, there is a pollution problem in Hanoi as well, and that goes hand in hand with the traffic situation. But at the end of the day, I think these are small prices to pay for living in such a great city. Do you consider yourself a patient person? I think that for the most part, I'm a pretty patient, relaxed person. Of course, it depends on the situation and my mood. If you put me in the same situation on 2 different days, I might react completely differently. But generally speaking, I'm pretty good at keeping my cool. What sort of things make you impatient? Well, as I mentioned before, traffic is a serious problem in Hanoi. Like most people, I get frustrated when there's a long delay, and it's especially difficult to remain patient when you have somewhere to be, maybe work or some sort of event that you're on your way to. But I try to remind myself that there isn't much that I can do to change it. When you find yourself in a situation like that, maybe stuck in traffic or waiting for a bus, how do you usually kill time? I don't often take the bus, but I do get stuck in traffic a lot, and I do spend a lot of time waiting in lines, like at the bank. When I find myself in a situation like this, I usually do a couple of things. If I'm driving and I get stuck in traffic, I'll look around and read some of the Vietnamese signs that I see. I'm learning Vietnamese, so I try to work on my pronunciation whenever possible. I think that the Vietnamese people around me might think that I'm a bit crazy, but I do it anyways. Now, if I'm waiting in the line, I'll usually do the same thing that people do nowadays. Just get on my phone. It's something that I try to avoid, but I oftentimes find myself scrolling through social media or aimlessly watching videos on YouTube. Now I would like to talk about languages. Which languages can you speak? Well, I can obviously speak English, but on top of that, I can speak Spanish and I can hold conversation in Vietnamese. I've only been learning for about 5 months, and I can handle everyday conversations, but I'd like to get to the point where I'm fluent in Vietnamese. How did you learn English? Growing up in the United States, it came pretty naturally. I think if I didn't learn English while living in the US, there would be something seriously wrong with me. But it's funny because looking back, I don't really remember learning the fundamentals of English grammar. So now that I'm teaching English, I have to go back and relearn a lot of that stuff. Do you think English is a difficult language to learn? If you asked me this question a year ago, I probably would have said no. But now that I help people learn and improve their English, I've come to realize that it's an extremely difficult language. English is a pretty lawless language, in the sense that sometimes there aren't really rules or justification behind the way that things are. On top of that, there are a lot of words in English that are spelled the exact same way, but have 2 different meanings and are pronounced 2 different ways. I think this can be especially confusing for someone trying to learn the language. What about the other languages that you've learned? Have these been challenging? Oh, without a doubt. I think Spanish was quite a bit easier than Vietnamese because there are a lot of similarities between English and Spanish in terms of grammar and pronunciation. Vietnamese, on the other hand, has almost no relation to English. Vietnamese is a tonal language, which offers a whole new set of challenges for someone coming from a Western country. But the silver lining is that I live in Vietnam, so it's been quite easy to practice the language on a daily basis, and that has really helped me improve. Do you think it's important to learn different languages? Well, I think it depends on your situation. If you plan to stay in your home country forever, then it might not be that important. But many people learn foreign languages in order to give themselves more opportunities in terms of a career. And in that case, learning a language like English or Chinese is very important. In my situation, as someone who lives in a foreign country, it's almost a necessity. In general, if you're living in a foreign country, I think you should make an effort to become proficient in the local language. It's almost a matter of respect. And on top of that, I think it will also make your life quite a bit easier. Part 2. Describe a movie that you want to tell your friends about. You should say where you watched it, what the movie was about, with whom you watched it, and why you want to share it with friends. While I don't watch a lot of movies in my free time, there is one movie in particular that I would love to share with my friends. The movie is called Ex Machina, and I saw it for the first time when I was a freshman in college. I was taking a philosophy course in college at the time, and the trailer to the movie really caught my attention, because the storyline was very similar to the type of things that we were talking about in class. So I convinced my roommate at the time to come with me to the movie theater and watch the film. The movie plot centers around a young computer programmer who's chosen by his boss to run tests on a new form of artificial intelligence. He gets flown out to a top secret facility where he interacts with this lifelike female robot. The robot, of course, is not actually human, but as the movie goes on, she convinces the protagonist that she's just like him. She can feel pain, she has dreams and desires, and she wants out of the facility that she's being kept in. The robot is so smart and convincing that the computer programmer eventually helps her to escape. In the final scene of the movie, the robot locks the programmer in the facility and escapes into the real world. Now, I think there are a few reasons why I would want to share this film with friends. For starters, it's simply an outstanding movie. My roommate was a film and media major in college, and after coming to the theater with me, he decided to write a paper about the movie. Even my philosophy professor admitted it was one of the best films he's ever seen. But on top of being a great movie, Ex Machina is also very relevant. Currently, we aren't that close to developing AI like the kind you see in the movie, but in the coming years, that sort of thing might become a reality. And the movie does a great job of posing some really deep, interesting questions. So I think it's a really thought-provoking film and one that most of my friends would really enjoy. Part 3. Many people watch movies or TV shows when they're bored. Do you think this is a good or bad thing? Well, I don't think that a movie every once in a while is a bad thing, but I know a lot of people that spend all of their free time in front of a screen, and I almost feel bad for them. In a few years, they'll look back on their life, and while everyone else will have these memories of going out with friends or traveling to new places, they'll just remember all of the films that they watched or the video games that they played. I also think that boredom can be a really useful thing. You can spend that time to work towards something productive, like learning a new language or developing a useful skill. If you just spend all of your time watching movies, I think you're wasting a good opportunity to improve yourself. Many people think that individuals in the film industry, especially producers and directors, make too much money. What do you think about this? I don't really buy into this argument. People make the same claims about athletes or business executives, but at the end of the day, I think these people are making the amount of money that they deserve. A director makes a movie, and if people think the movie will be good, they go and buy a ticket. If a lot of people buy a ticket, production companies will pay a director a lot of money to make another movie. I mean, there are plenty of directors who can't find work or who don't make very good money, and that's because people just don't really want to see their films. The ones who make a lot of money do so because they bring a lot of value to people's lives. If you think directors make too much, then you should stop going to see their movies. Let's talk about actors and actresses. What do you think makes an actor or an actress successful? Well, I think that a number of things are involved in an actor or actress becoming successful. I think the most important thing is simply talent. An actor is someone who can pretend to be somebody that they're not and can convince an audience that they really are that person. For instance, Leonardo DiCaprio, one of the best actors out there, played the role of a mentally challenged child in one film and then went on to play Jay Gatsby in another film. Of course, it also helps that Leonardo DiCaprio is handsome and charismatic. I think these things can also play a big role in the success of a film star. Why do you think people enjoy learning about the private life of actors and actresses? I'm not really sure. Personally, I'm not that interested in the private life of celebrities, and I think it's kind of weird when the paparazzi takes pictures of famous people leaving their houses or eating at a restaurant with their family. It seems like a total invasion of privacy. But I think that people probably enjoy knowing that someone as famous as Leonardo DiCaprio or Miley Cyrus is dealing with the same problems that they are. It doesn't matter how much money you have or how famous you are. You can still go through issues like addiction, depression, or relationship problems. And for people that are interested in celebrities, I think this can be a comforting notion. Why do you think that is? Well, I think that people just like to know that others are going through the same struggles that they are. It's what makes music so interesting. We can see a famous artist like Ed Sheeran and think that his life is pretty much perfect. But then when we listen to his music, we realize that he deals with the same problems that we do. In a way, I think that people like to know that everyone is faced with the same hardships, and this goes for both musicians and actors and actresses. Let's discuss the film industry. As the world becomes more interconnected, the film industry is beginning to play a larger role in each country's international presence. Do you think it's important for countries to have a good film industry? Well, I think that having a strong presence in the film industry can certainly help spread a country's image and values across the world. America is the perfect example. A lot of people watch Hollywood films, and their idea of America, or the Western world, comes from shows like Friends or American romance movies. The popularity of the American film industry has really helped spread America's international presence and the idea of the American dream across the world. Now, I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but it's definitely true. You mentioned that America has a strong international presence due to its film industry. Vietnam does not. What should Vietnamese filmmakers do to improve their international presence? They should make better films. I think people watch American movies or Korean films because they're well made. As someone who's learning Vietnamese, I've tried to find entertaining Vietnamese films to watch, but I can't find any for the life of me. It's pretty simple though. People watch movies if they're well produced and the acting is good. If Vietnam wants to improve its international presence by means of its film industry, they just need to focus on improving the quality of their movies. Should the government be involved in funding and promoting a country's film industry? I'm not sure. I think it depends on what the goals of the government are. If the government wants to increase their international influence, then I think that funding the film industry is a good way to do that. But, of course, it's not the only way. The government can fund domestic businesses or researchers. then when these companies make products that are successful internationally, it will help the country's image. Or if a country develops a strong reputation in technology or science, this can also be very beneficial. At the end of the day, I also think there are a lot of more important things to fund. You want to make sure that everyone in your country has food and shelter, and that there are plenty of good jobs to go around. If you don't have these issues sorted out, then it doesn't seem like the best idea to throw money at the film industry. But then again, if a government wants to expand its international reach, I think the film industry can be a good way to do that.